Hello, today I'm going to be walking you through how to sew the Atelier Joy Amelie circle purse. This is a really cute purse, quilted on the outside. You can do a bow or a pocket on the outside as well. And then it's fully lined with an interior pocket and a zipper and shoulder strap. You can find this and all my other patterns on my Etsy shop linked below. I've got all my fabric pieces cut out according to the pattern. So I've got over here I've got my lining pieces, the top, the bottom, the front and back. I'm using a black polyester satin for the lining on this one. And then I've got my main fabric pieces here. So I'm using a beautiful green velvet. And I've already put the interfacing on the back of this. So I've got my front and back, bottom, top, and then I'm going to be doing the bow variation on this one. So this is the bow. This is going to be the bow. And it's got the interfacing piece in the middle. And then this is going to be the middle band of the bow. So that's got the interfacing in the middle of it as well. And then finally, I've got my Annie Soft and Stable, or you could use polar fleece for a little bit of batting for the quilting part of the bag. So I've got my front and back piece and my bottom piece that I'll be quilting onto the velvet. My green thread to match, a 9-inch zipper for the top. This one I chose to do this black with gold metal just for a little bit of bling. And so yeah, you need a 9-inch zipper. And then I've got my bias tape. That'll be the strap. You need about 2 yards for that. All right, let's get started. All right, the first step is going to be drawing our quilting lines onto our front and back pieces. And you want to orient your front or back with the top at the top. So that's a double notch that you've cut. That should be at 12 o'clock here, okay? Double notch there. There we go. And then across from that at 6 o'clock, you've got a single notch, all right? So the first landmark notch that we're going to draw is from 6 o'clock. Sorry, the first landmark line is from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock, okay? Here's my 9 o'clock. So I'm going to take my ruler, line that up, okay? And then you're going to draw a series of lines parallel to that one, 1 inch apart. So on my ruler, I'm following this black line here. That's 1 inch. Now you want to draw a series of lines perpendicular to those first lines. So you can line up your bottom of your ruler with your 6 o'clock notch and then make it perpendicular to your first set of lines and continue to draw lines 1 inch apart from each other. Okay. So that's one of my sides, my front or the back. I'm going to do the other one, and then I'm going to do, let me just show you the bottom. Okay, so here you've got a center notch on the bottom, right in the middle of it. And I'm going to do a marking 2 inches up and over from that. So I've got my ruler here. It's just gonna give us like a nice square position. All right, so that's my marking that I'm aiming for, and I'm going to go from that center notch to that marking. All right, and I'm just gonna keep doing parallel lines spaced 1 inch apart. All right. And then for the other lines, I'm going to go again from the center notch 2 inches by 2 inches away. So line is gonna be my spot that I'm aiming for right here. And again, I line it up from that notch to that marking. And this should be perpendicular to the lines that you just drew. And then you just keep going. Make sure that your lines stay perpendicular to the original lines that you drew. Now we're going to put the fleece batting or soft and stable on the back side of this. And it's slightly smaller than the main fabric, so you want to center it right in the middle. And then, of course, pin it in place. I'm going to pin on the front. And I would put plenty of pins in because the fabric and the batting do want to shift as you're stitching, so I'm going to put a lot of pins in. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stitch my quilting lines now. You should start with one of the lines more in the middle instead of on the edge. So I'm going to start with this one. And you just want to do a straight stitch for this. And I find that it's helpful when you're doing quilting to kind of alternate directions with your stitching so that the fabric doesn't get pushed all in one direction. So this time I stitched this way. Now I'm going to turn it and stitch in the opposite direction. And now to alternate it again, I'm actually going to stitch some of the perpendicular lines to make sure it stays centered in that direction. Okay, I've got this beautiful jewel box quilted effect. I'm going to do the same for the other piece, the back piece, and the bottom. You also want to pin your batting or your padding onto the back of the bottom piece. This is actually the same size as the main fabric, whereas the front and back pieces were slightly smaller. So you just want to go ahead and pin that right on top. Again, lots of pins because this batting and fabric will tend to shift as you're stitching. Now I'm going to quilt the bottom piece. Again, I'm starting somewhere in the middle. And I'm going to work in the opposite direction for the next stitch. Okay, now we've got our bottom piece. The next part is going to be making our bow. So you want to take your bow piece. I've got my interfacing already applied in the middle of it, and you're going to fold it with your right sides together like that and pin along this long edge. Now I'm going to stitch this with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Pressed open my seam allowance. Make sure if you're using a polyester velvet like this or any other synthetic material that you keep your iron on a lower setting, not the max setting, because you don't want to melt your fabric, of course. And once you've pressed your seam allowance, you can turn this right side out. And now we've got this kind of tube with the interfaced part on the face of it, and then your seam is on the back. Now we're gonna be doing the band that's gonna go in the middle of the bow. That's just to show you an old sample that I have. This part here that's gonna go in the middle of the bow. That's what we're working on now. Okay, so what you wanna do is you've already got your interfacing on this part. You're gonna fold it in half, right sides together, and pin along the long edge. And now we're going to stitch at 3/8 of an inch. I've got this tube, I pressed open the seam allowance. Now I'm going to turn it right side out. So now we've got, again, we have a smaller tube this time, but we have a tube. The front piece of it has interfacing applied, and then the seam is on the back. And we're gonna take it and fold it this way so that your back seam is on the outside. And we're just gonna be stitching here. So I'm gonna pin that closed. And you're just gonna do a little stitch at 3/8 of an inch here. Okay, so let's turn this right side out. So now we've got this little kind of, it looks kind of like a napkin ring. And then you'll be putting the seam in the back, so the seam won't be seen at all. Now, for this next step, we're gonna be folding this bow part into an actual bow and feeding it through this ring. And the way that I like to do it is by folding this kind of like a fan with pleats. So you're gonna make a fold about a 1/2 inch and then go back and forth like that with these 1/2 inch pleats. Okay, and then you're going to feed this through our ring. I have to wrestle it a little bit. Okay. And then just slide this right into the middle. Once you've got it in the middle, you can kind of fiddle with it to get your bow how you want it. The next step is to put the bow onto the front piece. So you're going to find your notches that are between 12 and 3 and 6. So right here, and then the lower ones too. And you're going to be lining up the bow on those notches. So I've also pinned the bow has a notch right here, and I've lined that up with the back seam. So I've got that all lined up. So I'm going to go ahead and line this up with my 9 o'clock notch. Okay, and then I'll take this side where I've got my center notch lined up with the back seam, and I'm going to pin that to my 3 o'clock notch. All right, and then you're going to be pulling this outer edge out and pinning it to that notch right there. That's our 430 notch. And then you just take the bow and pull it out and make it line up with this curved edge of the front piece. Like that. All right, and now we're going to baste this on the machine. I'm machine basting the edge of my bow with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. All right, I'm going to be making the strap. So for this you want a double fold bias tape, about 2 yards of it. And I'm just going to be stitching as close as I can to this part where it opens up so that it'll be nice and closed. On the pattern it calls for a 1/2 inch wide double fold. I think this one that I'm using right here is 3/8 of an inch. Either one will work. And just going to stitch as close to the edge as I can get. All right, you want to trim your strap to about 56 inches. This is a recommended length for an adult crossbody bag. If you're making this for a child, you can definitely go shorter. Now we're going to make the pocket. This is a little patch pocket on the interior of the bag. And you want to take your lining fabric. This is my right side of my fabric. This is my wrong side. It's a little duller. And you're going to fold it right sides together, matching up the little notches that you've got here and here. And you're going to pin at those notches. Okay, we're going to end up leaving this open between the notches so that we can turn it right side out. But everywhere else where the raw edges are meeting, you want to pin. And we're just going to stitch here to this notch and then pick up from this notch all the way to the end with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. You want to trim these corners so that we don't have too much bulk in the corners when we turn it right side out. And then in that little opening between the notches, you're going to turn this right side out. Like that. And you can use your fingers to press out the corners to begin with. And then take a closed pair of scissors and very gently push out on those corners to get a nice sharp corner there. Okay, and you can just kind of finger press this in. We're gonna take this to the iron and press it all flat. Right, I've got this pocket that I just pressed. There's still this opening here. That's gonna be the bottom edge of our pocket. Along the top edge, we're going to top stitch about 3/4 of an inch from the top edge. Okay, so now we've got a top stitched edge for the top of the pocket. Now you're gonna take your front lining piece. Either one of the circles is fine, they're the same. But you do wanna make sure that you've got your double notch at the top at 12 o'clock. I have this handy dandy line in the middle of my table. So I'm gonna line that up here, and then at the bottom I've got my 6 o'clock notch. And then you're gonna just center this pocket with the top near the double notches, top up, and center that pocket on there. That looks good. And pin it in place. Okay, we're gonna top stitch this pocket onto the, I guess this is actually the back lining piece. And we're just gonna top stitch about 1/8 of an inch from the edge along the side, bottom, and the other side, leaving the top open. Now we're going to apply the zipper to the top portions. Lay your zipper down with the right side of it up. Take one of your top pieces, and you're going to find the unnotched long edge. So I have a notch here. So I'm going to go to the other edge. Lay it face down on top of the zipper, and you're going to line up this raw edge of the fabric with the end of the zipper stop. And then pin in place. So you want to line up the raw edge of your fabric with the raw edge of the zipper here. I'm going to move this zipper pull out of the way as I pin this part. And now we're going to stitch along this zipper, making sure to move the zipper pull out of the way as needed. Don't forget to put your zipper foot on your machine. I've got my zipper foot on, and now I'm going to be stitching this about 1/4 of an inch away from the interior zipper edge. I've got my zipper opened up so that I can begin stitching, and then once I'm a ways down into the zipper, I'll pull the zipper pull back up. All right, so you've got your top main stitched to the zipper for one side. Now we're gonna stitch on the lining for that side. So you wanna take this, flip it over so that your zipper is wrong side up. And then you're gonna take your top lining with right side down. Is that right? Yeah. With right side down, take your unnotched edge. I have my notched edge here. I'm going to take my unnotched edge and line it up with where the fabric is. Here. So I'm going to line it up with my main fabric and pin it in place. And we're actually going to stitch right on the same stitch line that we used to stitch the main fabric. So I'm going to have it with the main fabric face up to stitch so I can see my stitch line. I'm going to open up this zipper to get it started. I'm going to bury my needle and then pull the zipper pull back up out of the way and raise the zipper foot. Okay, we're going to do the other side. So for now, I'm going to pin this side out of the way. Okay, and then I'm going to move on to my other side. So again, you're going to take your unnotched edge. Here's my notched edge. I'm going to go to this unnotched edge and line it up with the edge of the zipper here. And I'm going to start with pinning it right where the other piece of fabric is. So just past the zipper stop. Okay, now again we're going to pin the lining for this side. Okay, I've got my lining pinned to the other side, and now again I'm going to stitch right over that same stitch line that I used to attach the main fabric. All right, so now we've got your zipper with the main fabric on the top side and your lining fabric on the back. And I'm gonna take this to the iron and press everything. Press the fabric away from the zipper so that it's not getting stuck in the zipper. Okay, the next step is to top stitch just beside where the fabric connects to the zipper so that you can keep everything out of the way of the zipper. Okay, now we're going to trim the zipper down to meet up with the fabric. So I'm going to start on the end with the zipper stop, and I'm just going to trim this even. Okay, and then up here, you're going to open your zipper a little bit. And then make sure you've got it all lined up. I actually need to trim down this fabric a little bit because it extends about 1/8 of an inch past this fabric and I want it to all be even. So I'm going to trim that and trim the zipper off. And now just be careful if you do cut off either end of your zipper stop, be careful that you don't pull your zipper all the way open or closed and pull off. I didn't have to worry about that in this case because my zipper stop and this upper zipper stop was within the fabric. All right, now we're going to apply the strap. So I'm going to start on the left side and I'm going to apply it to the top part, and I'm going to meet up where the fabric, that square where the fabric meets the zipper, and pin it right there. And then feed this strap along, making sure that it does not get twisted. Make sure that it's lying flat. And then on the right side, you're going to go attach it to the lower part so that it balances out. So again, I'm going to pin it right where the fabric meets the zipper. And then we're going to machine baste this in place with about 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to pull this zipper out of the way. The next step is to apply our bottom to the top, attach our bottom to the top. And you need to open up your zipper to about the middle here so that the zipper pull is out of the way. And then you're going to pin with right sides together, pin the bottom to the top. My batting is a little bit off from my fabric. I'm focusing on lining up the fabric, not the batting. And now you're going to stitch that with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. I'm moving my stitch length back to a normal stitch length instead of the basting. So we've got our bottom main attached to our top piece. Let me just make sure this zipper works properly. Yep, looks good. Okay, so now we're going to affix the bottom lining. So you want to turn this whole thing over. Get your strap out of the way. And you're going to take your lining and apply it with the right side of the lining to the right side of the top lining. Line that up. And then on the other side, make sure that you open up your zipper so that you're not trying to sew over your zipper pull, and line that up. Now we're going to stitch this over the same stitch line as we did the main fabric bottom. So I'm just going to turn it over and stitch right over that stitch line. So I'm going to stitch the lining, the bottom lining onto this, but I'm going to follow along with the same stitch line where I attached the main fabric. So just follow right over that same stitch line. One word of caution, I almost broke my needle as I was stitching through this, and I realized afterwards it's because I was stitching through trying to stitch through the zipper, and my machine really didn't like that. So as you get to the middle of this seam, both when you're applying the main fabric and the lining, be very careful, maybe hand crank through it, go slowly until you get past your zipper, because you don't want to break or bend your needle or anything like that. Okay, so now we've got this whole piece that is your top and bottom of the bag. Here's your top with the zipper. And here's your bottom, and they're both lined, okay? And you've also got your strap attached. All right. So now we're going to be applying the front and back main and lining pieces. And I'm going to be referring to this as the top bottom ring because right now it's all one piece. So that's how I'm going to refer to that. Okay, we're going to be attaching our front piece, in this case it has the bow on it, to our bottom top ring. And you want to turn this ring right side out so your lining, wrong side out. So your lining is on the outside of the ring for this part. Okay, just tuck this back. Okay, now you should have a double notch up here at the center of your top piece, and you're going to be lining that up with your double notch that you've got on your front piece here. So that's the first thing you pin. Lining up my double notches, my right side of my front down. So right side of my front attaching to my right side of my top, and then pin it up in place. Okay. Then we're going to go to your 6 o'clock down at the bottom where you have a notch, and line that up. So your 6 o'clock notch of your front piece with your middle notch in your bottom piece. Okay. All right. And then you're going to be just easing this curve of the front piece into your bottom top ring and pinning it in place. It's a lot of material to go through. I've got this whole thing pinned in place with my front face down and my lining of my bottom top ring on the exterior. And now you need to hand baste this into place at about a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, because it's just too bulky a seam, too many curves to deal with. You don't want to take this straight to the machine. Now you can machine stitch with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Now we're going to be applying the front lining. You want to tuck that strap down into your purse so it's out of the way. We still have the lining right side out, and you want to lay your purse with the front of the bag laying on the table and your bow facing up towards you. Then take your lining front piece with the right side down and attach it to the double notch at the top of the top bottom ring where your front face attached, just on the other side. Then you're going to attach that 6 o'clock notch down at the bottom middle notch. And so you're sandwiching this top bottom ring in between your front main fabric and your front lining. And you're going to have right sides together, right sides of your lining and your main fabric together. Then you can go and match up all your notches as you go around the circle and pin everything in place really well. It's going to be really bulky, so you're going to need to use a lot of pins to keep it in place. Now you're going to use some chalk and mark an opening of about 4 inches. That's what you're going to use to turn the lining and the bag right side out. So just mark yourself about a 4-inch opening, and then around the rest of the bag you're going to hand baste with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Now you can machine stitch with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, leaving that 4-inch opening that we didn't baste. And now you want to gently turn that bag right side out through that 4-inch opening that you left. This might take some time, just be careful that you don't rip your seams as you go. At that 4-inch opening, you're going to hand press in 3/8 of an inch and pin it in place, and then hand stitch that opening closed using a slip stitch Okay, you've got your front attached and your front lining. You want to wrap up that strap and tuck it out of the way while you work on your back. And we're going to be attaching the back and the back lining just the same way that we did the front. So you want to find your double notches at the top of your back, line those up with the double notches at the top ring and pin that in place. Then you're going to be hand basting and machine stitching with 3/8 of an inch. You want to remember to leave your zipper open at least halfway so that you can turn your bag right side out through it. Here, I actually forgot to open it, so I'm having to unpin a little bit around the edge and open it up and then repin. So that's how you're going to be turning that bag right side out after you finish stitching. Now you're going to hand baste around all the way around the back with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Now you can machine stitch all the way around with 3/8 inch seam allowance. You can turn your bag right side out and take a look at it, make sure everything looks good, but then you're going to need to turn it wrong side out again and close up that zipper about halfway. And now we're going to be applying your back lining. This is the last piece that we're applying. The key here when we're putting on the back lining is to remember to keep the pocket opening towards the top. So lie your bag with the front lining facing up, and then lay the back lining down on top of that with your right sides of the lining together. But you're going to be pinning that back lining to the top and bottom rings where the back main fabric joined up. So you're going to have to sandwich in all of that front and front lining part and all of the top bottom ring. So it's going to be really stuffed. And you're going to have to use a lot of pins. And you want to leave about a 4-inch opening again here. I would leave it at the bottom so that it's more hidden, and that's what you're going to be turning the bag right side out through. Hand baste with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, leaving that 4-inch opening at the bottom open. Machine stitch with 3/8 inch seam allowance, leaving that bottom portion open. And now you can turn that bag so that the lining is on the exterior with the lining right side out. And now at that opening, you can just finger press in like you did for the front lining. Finger press in 3/8 of an inch at that opening and pin it in place. And now hand stitch that opening closed. I like to use a slip stitch, but you can use any other stitch that you're comfortable with. it's really not going to be that visible because it will be on the interior of the bag at the bottom. Your bag is now complete. You can open up that zipper all the way and turn it right side out. Use your fingers to press out along all of the seams that connect the front and the back to the top bottom ring. You've got a fully lined bag now with an interior pocket and a zipper and shoulder strap. If you'd like to, you can affix a tassel or other trim to your zipper to add a little flair to your trim. This is just a tassel, and I'm feeding it through one hole in the zipper, and then I'm gonna loop it around, kind of like you do with a luggage tag, to hook it onto that zipper. Please subscribe to this channel. I'll be adding tutorials on a regular basis. You can find this and all the other Atelier Joy patterns on our Etsy shop. You can see the link below. Happy sewing!